the policy timelines and active policies relevant to the sector in Germany. Over to you, Mr. Müller. Thank you.
Yes, thanks a lot, Mrs. Joan, for introducing me. Thanks a lot, Mr. Wittil, to introduce us and invite us to this very important event. Thanks everyone to be in this conference call. For us and myself, I'm working in the e-mobility since 2010, so already 12 years. That's a long time. There was pretty much nothing in those days. A couple cars, Tesla Roadster, but that was pretty much it. What was when we started in 2010, and of course the development since 2010 is amazing, especially in the last 3 or 4 years. And we, as the biggest association for e-mobility in Germany, the BEM, we are really supportive here to find a way which has a big success story, because at this point we are at a turning point where we can see the market is growing rapidly, looking in Germany, looking all over Europe, looking towards the US. And I think the fastest growing market in the world will be India in the next 10 years. I'm very happy that we start this cooperation from here. Personally, I like India a lot. It's a wonderful country. I've been there 2 times. So happy that you guys can live in such a great country. I've been to the Andaman Islands, very special place. And so I think there's a huge challenge for India to change towards e-mobility, because what I see and what I experience in India is the main issue is the air pollution. And I think we should really have the focus to see how can we change the air pollution, how can we make Indian cities cleaner by shifting towards e-mobility. And therefore, for us, the big focus in India should be smaller cars, scooters, and looking at a big variety of different kind of electric vehicles. So we just shouldn't only look at the classical cars or maybe trucks. We should look all over, because from my side and my perspectives, a big pollution in the city comes through the scooters. The scooters are really ineffective. All they do is pretty much polluting the air and using just 5 to 10% of the energy to move forward. And that's for us the main issue is electromobility is more efficient. An electric engine runs with an efficiency of over 90%. So we are not wasting energy while we drive an electric vehicle. We are using pretty much all the energy we put into the electric vehicle to move forward. And what we did until now, using fossil fuel, we mainly didn't use any energy. We polluted the air. We heated up the motor, and it has an inefficiency of about 80 to 70%. Just imagine, 70 to 80% is not being used for moving forward, just to create air pollution. And this is a focus. We have to really look at that. Electromobility is efficient, it's clean, and very important also for us, it's quiet, And we always forget that quietness or noise in cities is a big issue for the people. Not being able to sleep, not being able to calm down, not being able to relax. And so therefore, electromobility is not just an issue for air pollution, it's also an issue for noise. And very important for us, on the long run, electromobility will be cheaper. At this point, of course, we know batteries are really expensive, especially for an Indian market. And electric vehicles are still quite expensive. But we see a decrease of the cost of battery, which is an amazing decrease in the last 8 years. It came up, I would roughly say, in a decrease of 50% of the cost of battery until today in the last 8 years. And I think, or we as the German Association of eMobility, we are sure batteries will be even roughly 20 to 30% cheaper in the next 5 years, because we are seeing a huge increase of battery production, and therefore out of this focus, batteries will become cheaper. So the main part is also why we communicate eMobility, where we from the German side made a big mistake, that we always communicated that electromobility is very expensive. We should start to communicate when we go out and campaign for electromobility, it will be cheaper. Because as I imagine, the price for energy in India is roughly between 3 to 10 cents per kilowatt hours, which means you can run an electric vehicle around 60 cents to €1 on 100 kilometers. So that's a very different story than running a fossil burning car or vehicle, which of course is way more expensive. And even with the actual cost of oil, we have a very different view. Also, what's highly important for us to look at electromobility, the country will be more independent. Of course, what's a big challenge behind changing the transportation section, it must also be a change of the energy section in India. And while you hopefully produce a lot more energy with solar or wind, we will talk about a way cheaper and independent way to produce energy than we do it right now. Germany didn't do the change fast enough. We are still depending too much on oil, too much on gas. And as through the actual situation with the war in Ukraine, we realized how difficult the situation became because we have such a huge dependency. So therefore, what we are putting on the table saying, please, when we change towards electromobility, we also become more independent, because India is a huge country with a lot of solar energy, can be absolutely independent in the transportation sector, producing enough energy to maintain the transportation section. And I think that's a very important issue, especially looking at the actual situation, actual news in the world. So therefore, for us, there are amazing possibilities when you change toward electromobility. And I think also a very personal issue on my side, it's wonderful to drive an electric vehicle. It's quiet, it's fast, it's accelerating amazingly. We know that the best Tesla can accelerate from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 2.6 seconds. A car, 2.6 seconds. That's amazing. Of course, we don't need this kind of cars in India, but still, the fun part from our side is also very important. We have a quite strong, amazing vehicle which we can use on a daily basis, and why we're not doing any air pollution. Very important for us to see is, where did Germany make mistakes while supporting the e-mobility, and where did we advance and had a very successful story. In Germany, we are right now, until the end of the year, we are funding every electric car with 6,000 euros from the government. A car which comes up to 40,000 euros in the cost in the total cost of the car. Cars more expensive than 40,000 euros don't get funding. So I think this is very intelligent, because we don't need to put in a funding for luxury cars in Germany, because people are able to pay the extra in this. But cars below 40,000 euros get a funding of 6,000 euros. Next part is the German government had a huge funding in charging infrastructure. And very important to look at this one is to see there's a funding for the private sector, which estimate of roughly 1,000 euros per charger. This funding ran out by the beginning of this year. The German government funded 500,000 private chargers all over Germany. So this is already an amazing direction for funding to support the drivers at home to have a charging point. And funny wise, people bought chargers in Germany, even they still didn't have an electric car, but they bought a charger to be ready when they buy their electric car in maybe 2 or 3 or 5 years. And then, of course, which is also highly important for the German government, that we are funding the chargers on the business side, on the B2B side. Therefore, the German government was funding high power chargers, low power chargers, DC and AC. And at this point, through this funding, we have already 60,000 chargers, public chargers all over Europe, all over Germany, and we will have. We want to be at roughly 100,000 charger in roughly 2 years. So the build up of new electric chargers in Germany is on a high level, public and private. So that's very important also when the Indian government thinks about funding, always include the private sector, not just the business sector, because that's very important to get a broad infrastructure for charging chargers all over the country. From our side, what's highly important to really look at the needs of the customers. Because as we said in the beginning, right now, electric vehicles are still more expensive than fossil burning vehicles. This might change in 5 to 8 years, but at this point, we have higher costs for electric vehicles. Therefore, we have to look what kind of fundings are making sense, in which direction and in which way for what kind of vehicles. We, as the German Association of eMobility, think it's very, very important to look at the electric light vehicles. So light trucks or trucks up to roughly 7 tons. This is a fast-growing market because at this point we see electromobility really growing in cities, not just in Germany, all over Europe. So we have a high demand of electric light trucks, as I said, up to roughly 7.5 tons, which have a range of roughly 200 kilometers. And what is going to be the next step in Germany, and maybe this is also going to happen at one point in India, cities are closing up their inner circle areas against diesel vehicles. We see that already in Paris. There in the nearby future, diesel trucks or diesel vehicles are not allowed to enter the city anymore. We probably will see this in Germany in the next 2 to 5 years. So any company who still runs with diesel trucks to deliver into the city will not be able to do their job. And therefore, for us, it's highly important to have these electric vehicles ready when the law comes through that diesel or fossil burning vehicles will not be allowed in certain cities. So, and I could imagine this would be a reality in India, maybe in 5 years, hopefully earlier, cities start to close up the downtown areas, so fossil burning vehicles will not be allowed to get into the city anymore. And therefore, personally, and from our side as a German Association for eMobility, we see the biggest challenge for a new market in Germany, in Europe, for light electric vehicles. That's the biggest market. The big trucks, the huge major trucks with whatever 12 tons and plus will be produced by the major players here in Germany, and they will continue their production into large electric trucks. But there's a huge lack either on electric light cars, as German car producers are not producing small cars anymore, or kind of really dramatically reducing the production of small cars. And as I said, as there's a huge lack of production for electric light vehicles here in Germany. So therefore, I see an immense chance for the Indian industry to come into the German market with these kind of electric light vehicles. And of course, we need to have electric light vehicles or trucks in a price-sensitive range. For now, we think the vehicles which are offered here in the German markets are way too expensive. They're mostly 2 or 3 times more expensive than a diesel vehicle, and therefore we need to have a price-sensitive opportunity for electric light vehicles coming into the German market, and offering them to companies like organic supermarket. They would love to have cheaper electric light vehicles. There's a huge amount of these organic supermarkets in Germany, and they cannot reach out to buy the vehicles they want to have for their deliveries. That's just one example out of many where we see a strong growing market and a strong demand for these electric light vehicles. So thanks again for being able to speak here, and thanks again for putting in our vision for the future of electromobility. And we are very sure that this is going to be a huge market. It's going to be developing very, very fast. And what we always say, be ready for an amazing new way of electromobility vehicles all over India and of course Germany.
Thank you, Mr. Mueller. I think that was very insightful to give a perspective of what we should be looking at and where we head towards. Our next speakers for today are from Invest India, Ms. Arishna Saxena and Mr. Rajat Gupta. I request you to kindly put your cameras on. They are both from the Invest India team and are responsible for the auto and e-mobility systems. Invest India is the national investment promotion agency of the Government of India under the Ministry of Commerce. Arishna comes from the consultancy and M&A background, and Rajat has worked with the OEM and startups in the auto sector before joining in Invest India. They will give us the overview on the opportunities in e-mobility, the global players, and with no further delay, I'd like to hand it over to both of you, Arishna and Rajat. Thank you.
Thanks, Shamli. We can move on to the next slide. Good afternoon or good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to present here and be a part of this webinar. So before we begin, I would like to spend 2 minutes and give a brief introduction about Invest India and what we do. So Invest India is the Indian government's national investment promotion and facilitation agency. We work under Ministry of Commerce and Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade. Rajat and I are a part of the auto sector, which particularly works with the Department of Heavy Industry. So our job here is twofold. One is promoting India as an investment destination, apprising global companies such as yourself of the various relevant policies and incentives. And the second part is investment facilitation. So once companies have decided to invest in the Indian market, we at Invest India support them in their investment cycle, pre, during, and post investment. So pre-investment could be anywhere from finding a JV partner to advice on state and central policies, negotiating incentive packages and location assessment, where we can advise you based on your plans that which state would be best suited, and providing land packages in those states. And during the investment, it could be any issue during your investment phase. That is something we can take up with the relevant government body. We are sitting at a sweet spot, where we are owned by both central government and the state government. So we are closely working with all government agencies. We also have a three-pronged approach wherein we are divided into sector, state, and country teams. Sector teams connected with the respective line ministries, state teams connected with the respective state governments, and then country teams who are connected with the missions and embassies, such as the embassy in Berlin. In that sense, we are our auto and EV team is well connected within the entire Indian auto ecosystem, and we would be happy to assist any company who is looking to enter the Indian market. Next slide, please. Yeah. So one second, I can clear. The Indian auto industry, we're going to start with a very quick overview. India recently became the fourth largest automotive market after China, USA, and Japan. We are also the largest producers of three-wheelers, tractors globally, second largest when it comes to two-wheelers, and third largest when it comes to passenger vehicles. Now, in 2010, the automotive market was somewhere around 4.3% of GDP, wherein in 2020, recently, it's now become 7.1% of the GDP, and it's growing continuously. In the last decade itself, the automobile sector has received almost 6% of the total FDI inflow into India, and half of that has come in the last 5 years itself. The Indian auto industry is expected to reach 300 billion by 2026. And as you can see that our sales are recovering quite well post-COVID. This industry has been proven to be one of the most resilient sectors in India. And we are currently, in fact, moving towards a record-breaking sales for financial year 23. Just recently, in the month of November itself, we are close to selling 2.3 million vehicles. And as is the case globally at the moment, the auto sector is naturally transitioning into the EV sector, and our government and auto industry is aligned in achieving this goal. Next slide, please. Okay. So the Indian EV ecosystem is at an initial stage right now in terms of numbers. However, when it comes to the involvement of industry stakeholders, almost every auto OEM and supply chain company, along with relevant ministries and associations, are deeply involved in this transition. Most of the auto players have either released their EV products or have announced the launch of their EV products. In the last 3 to 5 years alone, we have received almost 3 billion as funding for EV startups, of which $1 billion has been achieved in this year itself. And while the official figures for EVs is around 1.5 million on road as at August of this year, this number is increasing exponentially on a daily basis. And the CAGR of this industry has been around 49% this decade. The EV market in India is expected to grow multifold and reach around 202 billion in the next 8 years itself. Now, this is due to various growth factors that have been aligned with the EV industry. One of our major contributors have been the startup ecosystem, along with all the traditional OEMs who are anyway very strong, and they're slowly announcing their EV plans. Innovations have best happened at a startup level, and this has proven to be a strong growth driver for the ecosystem. India has more than 200 startups in this space who are now bringing new technologies daily. Growth of last mile delivery services and startups like Amazon, Zomato, Swiggy, they have contributed momentously to the EV sector, and more delivery partners have pledged to convert 100% of their fleet to electric. Another factor is obviously the rise of pollution. Consumers' mindset is evolving daily, and more of them want to come and move on to a cleaner energy resource to live a better life in the coming years. Some of the major factors also include government initiatives, such as benefit and taxes for customers, state and central initiative schemes, which now we will cover in detail. Next slide, please. Next. Okay. So I'm going to be very brief on this slide. It's just a roadmap that we are showing. As you can see that the seed for EVs was planted somewhere around 2005. That was the planning stage. However, the sector took flight mainly 2019 onwards when FAME 2 was brought on. FAME 2 was a main policy which created the much required demand for EV, as we will see later on in the presentation. Next slide, please. Yeah. So, the Indian government in its entirety is taking unprecedented steps to boost the EV ecosystem in India. And the growth of this industry requires coordinated efforts from all ministries together. The Ministry of Heavy Industry is the nodal ministry for auto and EV and has released several key policies to for both demand side and supply side. However, there are other ministries involved in this as well. For setting up the requisite infrastructure, Ministry of Housing has released building bylaws to incorporate charging stations in residential area. Then we have the Planning Commission of the government, Niti Aayog, who has very recently also released the battery swapping policy to cover end-to-end of the EV infrastructure. Ministry of Environment has released the battery waste management rules, which will encourage companies to set up battery recycling infrastructure. Next slide, please. Okay. So we'll move on to our first key policy, which is your cell. Now, given that cell is or battery is one of the most important as well as costly component of an EV, the Indian government understood that the first step is to build a good cell manufacturing base here in India. So in order to do so, the central government released a production-linked incentive scheme for advanced chemistry cells in 2021. Through this scheme, the government of India intended to optimally incentivize investors to set up gigascale ACC manufacturing facilities with an emphasis on maximum value addition and quality output. The scheme involved setting up of a cumulative ACC manufacturing capacity of somewhere around 50 gigawatt hours and an additional cumulative capacity of 5 gigawatt hours for niche technologies. The beneficiary firms will also have to commit to set up a minimum of 5 gigawatt hours of ACC manufacturing facility, and the total subsidy that the government was going to disburse was capped at 20 gigawatt hour per beneficiary firm. And incentives eventually will be offered only to those firms that have been allocated the ACC production capacity. The subsidy disbursement, though calculation is very technical, but it depends on the applicable subsidy amount per kilowatt hour and the value addition achieved, as well as the actual sale of ACC in kilowatt hour. This was capped at around somewhere or 20 to 25% of the ACC sale price net of GST. This scheme was oversubscribed massively. However, due to technical and financial reasons, as of now, 3 firms were finally allotted a combined production capacity of 30 gigawatt hours. And in these 3 firms, the incentives can go up to 25% of the total cell cost. We are currently working with the entire stakeholders of these schemes and including the line ministry, which is again DHI. And while the scheme is designed to promote large-scale battery manufacturing facilities, basis our regular interaction and discussion with relevant stakeholders, we project that the ripple effect of the same will be seen in the entire Indian EV ecosystem. Your lower cost of electric vehicle would lead to obviously higher accessibility to the consumers and increase in demand of EVs, thus leading to economies of scale. Next slide, please. Yeah. So moving on to the production-linked incentive scheme for auto and auto components. There were mainly three reasons for this scheme to be announced. One was to make the auto industry environmentally sustainable, but also to adapt to the latest technology while doing so. The second was to bring large-scale investment in this sector. And the third was to make the industry self-reliant and boost local manufacturing. As you can see, this scheme was announced on September of 2021, and it'll go on till financial year 27. So it's a 5-year scheme. It was not only applicable for current large-scale players in the auto industry, but it was also for the non-auto and new players who wanted to enter this market. The incentive here will vary from 13 to 18% for an OEM and 8 to 13% for an auto component. And the incentive will be calculated on net incremental sales year on year. There are also various eligibility criteria in this scheme, including group revenue, investment, minimum value addition of 50%, so on and so forth. It is expected to bring in investments of around 9 billion in the sector. And this scheme was oversubscribed as well. It had a total of around 125 companies applying. So that was a massive subscription rate that the Indian government got. And all major auto and auto component players in India were participating in the scheme. So as we can see, a total of 85 companies have been awarded with this scheme, 67 component makers and around 18 OEMs. And it's currently in the consultation stage with MHI for further steps. With this, can we move on to the next slide, please? Yeah, Rajat, I would request you to take on, please.
Thank you, Arishna. Yeah. So, thank you, Arishna, for giving the introduction to the Indian market and sharing the details regarding the supply side incentives. So, I'll just, since we are falling short of time, I'll be very quick and share details regarding the final central scheme, which is called the FAME scheme for India, FAME India scheme, which is basically the demand side of things. So the government of India 5 years back announced the FAME policy, and FAME basically stands for faster adoption and manufacture of electric vehicles, and with a total budget outlay of 1.3 billion US dollars. And as a part of the scheme, the whole goal of the government was that the individual customer should be given a direct rebate by the government on their first EV purchase. And this scheme covers pretty much all the categories of vehicle, be it four-wheelers, two-wheelers, three-wheeler, buses, and also supports the setting up of the charging infra in the country. So, and the key aspect of the scheme was that it had a major focus on the localization of the key major components to be eligible for the subsidy, and as well as the vehicle should be using advanced chemistry cells, so that the government ensures that only good quality vehicles which meet the minimum performance standards are eligible for the subsidy. And just to put things into perspective, if we take an example how the consumer was benefited, let's say a consumer was buying a $1,500 US scooter, but because of the scheme, it was effectively costing around 1,100 US dollars because of the FAME subsidy, therefore lowering down the cost of buying an electric vehicle and making it at least at par with their ICE counterparts. So this scheme has gone to with 2 iterations already, and eventually seeing the demand, it might be extended later on. So, and after these were the central government policies, so now individual states in India have also announced their respective state policies as well over and above central and federal government. They have their policies both from a demand side and which is subsidizing the customer, and supply side, which is incentivizing the manufacturer to set up a facility in their respective states. So if we say out of the total 28 states in India, more than 22 plus states have announced their policies already, and the rest of the policies are in the making. and all these policies are over and beyond the central government policies. So, in case any company is planning to manufacture niche EV components in India, like be it lithium-ion cells, be it motor, BMS, states are offering very attractive incentives, which are like direct capex subsidies up to 30% and other tax incentives as well. So this was just a brief on the EV policies, and we'll be happy to support the industry with more details later on. So now coming to the investment opportunities, what lies for the German companies in India. So the trade relations between Germany and India almost dates centuries back. In fact, some people say over 500 years old. And Germany has been one of India's largest trading partner in the European Union. And just to share some numbers, India has over 1,800 German companies in India, and this number is growing year on year. And in 1994, Mercedes Group entered India. Similarly, in 2008, Volkswagen entered the market. And now the city of Pune itself has over 300 companies, German companies functioning there. So, and specifically coming to the auto sector, Germany is the second highest contributor to the FDI number total received by the sector. And in fact, in 2019, German companies have pledged to invest over a billion euros in the mobility market in India. And if we see the numbers, auto component makers have been leading this investment, whereas companies like Daimler, Continental, and ThyssenKrupp have contributed over 50% of the FDI share in the auto sector from Germany. And if we see the market where German companies are concentrated in India, it's the auto electronics domain. If we see and if we see the whole trend towards shift of cars with more features and increase in the consumer base, the customer is more inclined towards buying cars which are heavy on electronics. So the total estimate of this market is around 18 billion US dollars by 2027. And if you see the latest trends in the auto sector, there's a strong demand for new tech like ADAS, heads-up display, and most of the middle and high segment cars are asking for this technology. So there's a great opportunity for German companies to enter this market. And since Mr. Frank told us a lot of charging companies are part of BEM, we have prepared a slide to showcase the charging infrastructure and the ecosystem around charging in India. So since we all know a lot of policy push is required, both from a government point of view to enhance the infra in the country, the respective ministries have launched their own policies, be it Ministry of Heavy Industries, which have allocated over $125 million of funds for subsidizing the chargers, Ministry of Power, subsidizing electricity used for these chargers, and similarly, Ministry of Road Transport and Housing allocating lands for setting up these chargers. So there has been a constant push from all the ministries to improve the charging infra in the country. And just to take an example, Indian Railways, which is one of the biggest railway networks in the world, has issued special notification for sharing land parcels to allow private entities to set up chargers in all the prime locations in the country. And similarly, state discoms are also investing in setting up the charging infra in the country through a PPP model. And so currently the CPOs, or how we refer them as charging point operators, it's mostly driven by domestic players. We do have a lot of foreign charger manufacturers who are there in the country. And just to give a number on it, we have close to 3,000 chargers already, public fast chargers already present in the country. And this demand is forecasted to reach over 400,000 by 2026. So, this was just a brief on the investment opportunities for German companies, and just to give a more deeper idea about the industry clusters which are there in India, I'll just briefly show where the companies are located in the respective parts of India. So, as we all know, that the majority of the auto sector action is happening either in the west or the southern parts of India, and these are just the list of companies which are present in the respective region. I'll not spend much time on it, and when the presentation is shared, all these details will be there. Similarly, for EV manufacturers, majority of them are located in the western and the southern part of India. And since Arishna mentioned, the majority of the action is currently being driven by startups, and we have startups in respective verticals doing great work, pushing innovation further forward in the e-mobility sector in India. So I think this was just the last slide to give everyone a good overview of the auto sector in India. And now I'll request Jamie to take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajat. Thank you, Rajat and Arishna. I think good insights into the Indian market. Arishna, with no further delay, I'd like to hand it over to you for the panel discussion and to take further proceedings.
Sure. So just to begin the panel discussion, I would quickly like to introduce our esteemed panelists. We have Mr. Robert Orton, who is the company owner and managing partner of Orton GmbH, founded in 1925. He expanded the Orton Group in 2015 by establishing the startup Orton Electric Trucks. Together with its partner, the company converts new and used diesel commercial vehicles into electrically driven cars. So welcome, Mr. Orton. We also have Mr. Deb Mukherjee, who is the managing director of Omega Seki Mobility. It's one of India's fastest growing last mile connectivity solutions provider. He uses a data-driven approach in working towards India's switch to electric, a firm advocate of Make in India. His guidance has been instrumental in the birth of Rage Plus and Rage Plus Frost, OSM's indigenously developed electric three-wheeler cargo vehicles running on clean energy. Welcome, Mr. Mukherjee. We also have Mandar Vaidya, who is the Director of Materials Management for India at the ZF Group. ZF is one of the largest global technology companies supplying systems for passenger cars, commercial vehicles, and industrial technology, enabling the next generation of mobility. ZF offers comprehensive product and software solutions and electrifies a wide range of vehicle types. With its products, the company contributes to reducing emissions, protecting the climate, and enhancing safe mobility. So, welcome, Mr. Vaidya.
Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Kunal Dwivedi, who is the sourcing lead at Ather Energy. Ather is one of the leading manufacturers and retailers of premium electric two-wheelers for the Indian market. The company was founded in 2013 and since then has carved a niche in the market perspective about EVs by building high-end performance, zero maintenance, and smart electric vehicles. The company has also established an electric vehicle charging network called Ather Grid. So welcome, Kunal.
Thank you.
And last but not the least, we have Tanushree Bhattacharya, who heads the partnership and alliances vertical at Battery Smart. Battery Smart is one of India's fastest growing battery swapping network for electric 2 and 3 wheelers. It was founded in 2019 and is targeting around $17 billion of swapping market by 2025, with the vision to have a swap station at every 1 square kilometer area in the Delhi NCR region, and is also rapidly expanding into other markets. They work with the industry, including battery manufacturers, OEMs, driver community, and startups to build a robust ecosystem that is swiftly helping drivers easily shift to a more economical EV model. So welcome, Tanushree.
Thanks, Arishna.
We'll start with you, Mr. Orton, if that's okay.
Yes, thank you very much.
Sure. So my question to you, sir, would be that electrification of medium to heavy commercial vehicles has been a bit of a pain point for the EV industry globally. And the same goes for India as well. So considering the price-sensitive nature of the logistics industry, would you be able to share some details on the feasibility of EV commercial vehicles in a market like India? And what are the kind of efforts which are needed to make it feasible and at a national level to scale up EV fleet adoption?
Yes, thank you to all colleagues who listen me. Just a small introduction from my person. I'm an engineer in vehicle construction. I'm working in that business since 45 years, and with 60 years, I arranged a startup to make conversion of diesel trucks to 100% noiseless and 100% emission-free trucks. And with that activity, I see a big chance that in India, like Frank Müller announced that for the Indian producers, it's a big chance to follow my example, to do it in the same way, make conversion of trucks for the inner city logistic, or to bring new electrified trucks to the Indian market. There's a new challenge for all producers in India to put these transformation procedure in their own hands. And like you know, the big players in the automotive market are coming from Germany, from Japan, and meanwhile from China. And I see for the Indian technology, with a young population and with a big, huge demand within India, there's a new challenge, a new possibility to grow with that possibilities what are in the market with the transformation from the fossil, from the diesel-driven trucks and also cars, mostly trucks, I'm speaking for the truck business, to a emission-free driveline.
Understood, sir. So, like you rightly mentioned, it is a coordinated effort, and Indian companies, Indian auto players would definitely welcome any global technology you would want to come in and set up shop. So, we are excited to see what we can do for Orton here at India.
Yes, thank you very much. I think, of course, it's necessary to have a partner in India. We cannot. We are a medium-sized company, very innovative, and we are just in the discussion. Excuse me, Dr. Mukheri. We are just in a discussion with your representative in the German market to follow you, and perhaps also to bring Indian trucks to Europe. That would be a big new step. Never it happened before that with that new technology, you are able to make exportation from Indian technology outside of India. And that could be also a new challenge, what we are ready to discuss about.
Of course, and funnily enough, my question was to Mr. Mukherjee only next, that, electrification of last mile logistics in India is currently mainly driven by three-wheelers. And especially due to exponential growth of the e-commerce industry and last mile logistics companies, it would be great if you could talk about OSM's journey in India. And like Mr. Orton mentioned, what are your ambitions for the foreign markets as well?
Yeah, thank you very much, Arishna, and I thank Invest India for having me in this panel. OSM, we started our journey in 2018. We're going to complete about 5 years now. And right from the beginning, our vision was that, we first of all, we will produce, make in India. We will not resort to, the low-end imports from China, etc., which several companies did. So our business model was that, we will design, develop, and manufacture in India, and not only for India, we will also manufacture for the world. And with that vision, we set out on our journey. The company is backed by the mother company, Anglian Omega, who has been in automotive business for last 52 years. So we have considerable amount of experience and some expertise, even though we never made a full vehicle, but this was the first step that we took. So we started our manufacturing with the three-wheeler and in L5 category. Then we developed various models, the refrigerated one, etc. You rightly said, the last mile today, the major driver is the e-commerce. Obviously, it makes economic sense to them. And they are the biggest driver. And I do see that this continuing further. Now the market is upgrading to 1 ton and plus category, from sub 1 ton, which is typically served by the three-wheeler, 500 kilo. Now the market is upgrading to 1 ton. So I do see that newer range of light commercial vehicle, trucks, etc., will be the next change that we will see in the last mile as well as intra-city, and maybe even intercity within say 200-250 kilometer range. So that is where our next step is. We have already showcased our pickup truck to the market, and we are going to produce them in the next few months. We are ready with it. We are just evaluating the market feedback, etc. And also one thing what we did, which like our friend here from Aether, they sort of set the gold standards, I would say, is that set up a robust supply chain. We believe that if you want to be a OEM of some scale, you need to have a robust supply chain. That is very, very, essential for a very material intensive industry like automobile. So we have our own powertrain. Now it's a JV with a partner from Korea. We've also set up a JV with an US based company to do battery packs in-house, and we are going to start them very soon. They bring in state-of-the-art technology to India, and hopefully, next step we will also do cells. So what I'm saying is that this is the full package that we bring to the market, from the supply chain, from the vehicle, and also we do the last mile ourselves. So that's where OSM journey is. And I'm also very happy to state that we are probably the first company in this segment that we are exporting our vehicles. Our vehicles are currently running in Bangladesh, Egypt, Turkey, and Tanzania. So these are the markets that we have explored. So I look forward to collaboration with like-minded people, partners, technology holders, and other stakeholders who are interested in the Indian market. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And it's great to know that, companies or startups such as OSM are not only focusing on one segment, but also, moving into the entire value chain, whether from, upstream to downstream. So that's great to know. And speaking of Aether, Kunal, since Aether is the leading manufacturer and seller of EV two-wheelers and one of the first homegrown companies who have always prided themselves on their strong research and innovation, how has your experience been in the Indian EV industry, and how has Aether scaled up production on ground?
Hi, Rishna. Thank you. Also, thank you, Dave, for putting up nice words about Aether. That was really nice to hear about. One word that I would say about my journey is exhilarating. We, as Mr. Muller and even you pointed out, that we are living in a place where the pollution is growing fast, right? And it is really the need of the hour to do something about it, right? So building a beautiful product at the right time is what it is about, right? And I feel really proud that I'm at the right space at the moment, right? So we basically started somewhere in 2013. We put in close to 5-6 years on the technological development front, building everything grounds up. We wanted to do everything in house, and that's what we have been really able to, right? And to be honest, we started productionizing into business somewhere in 2018 or 19, right? So it's only been 3 years, and we have scaled up massively. So one of the challenges that we have faced is that the industry was really not ready for the pace that we are running with, right? Because the regular orthodox way is that whatever scale we are trying to achieve has been possible in a timeline of a decade or so, right? And what we are trying to do is the same scaling up in, say, 6 to 8 months. And that has been one of the major challenge, and we have been able to outcome that, right? We have been able to scale up not only Aether, but our business partners as well in the same scale, so that we are ready to cater the demand that is there in the Indian market. So yeah, it has been a beautiful journey.
Thanks for that. And I think Aether is one of the companies where it sets an example of how important R&D is for an EV company. As you said, you you guys spend quite a long time designing the product as well, and that's why you have the quality that you have, right? So, moving on to Mr. Vaidya. Bear with me, my question is slightly long here. So, ZF entered the Indian market almost 40 years back, and it's become one of the leading suppliers of tech solutions, and also is helping shape the future of commercial as well as passenger vehicle segments in India. ZF currently has almost 18 manufacturing facilities in India, 3 subsidiaries, 4 JVs, 8 engineering centers. I'm sure some of the numbers might be a little off as well. You guys are growing continuously and are expanding your presence in India. So ZF entered the Indian market when the auto market in India was still evolving. And ZF being a traditional German auto component market at that time, how will you say that the company has grown in India and has adapted, say, from your local German industry to the Indian industry to meet the local demand? How has that journey been like?
Well, as you rightly said, Arishma, thank you for bringing up the history that ZF has and the spread that we have in India. ZF started this in 40 years ago through a joint venture approach, because as you point out, the Indian auto market was not mature enough for those products at that point of time. So it was a selective entry through different JVs. And once that got sort of going, then last 15 years have been the speed has been growing up. And last 15 years, I think in 2007, we started with the first wholly owned subsidiary called ZF India Private Limited. And that's the way that we grow now. So we started with a full ecosystem development 15 years ago. We set up engineering centers, which are not only serving the Indian market, but also serving the global market from India. And that created the, the ecosystem of having engineering here, developing it for India. And as Mr. Mueller talked about, or Mr. Vittel touched upon it, that unless it is specifically suited to Indian needs, it will not fly. Unless it is localized, it will not be accepted by the demanding customers that we have in India. So I think we built that ecosystem, and then we have been growing in leaps and bounds. This year, we will cross our total turnover in India will cross €1 billion, and we have aggressive plans to grow further. So we have actually coined two things I'm going to touch upon. We have an ambition setting of touching minimum €3 billion of local turnover by 2030.
Yeah.
€2 billion sourcing from Indian suppliers. So we leverage the frugal manufacturing concepts of Indian suppliers for the world. And to support this, we have planned an outlay of $200 million, €200 million worth of investments in next 5 years. So there are greenfield factories which are coming up. There are JVs which are further ramping up to capture the opportunities from in Indian market. Then the second thing that I want to touch upon is the Refresh India strategy, because we thought that it's essential to leverage the opportunity offered by Indian market with, it's called a 4-point strategy. It's readapt, reinforce, retain, and restructure. So readapt is basically talks about how do we adopt the advanced global technologies which suit the Indian market and which also enhance the localization, because as I said, unless it's competitively priced, Indian customers will not buy it. So we are working aggressively on localizing them and suited to Indian needs. So that is readapt. Reinforce is basically talking about making India a global manufacturing hub. So just to give an example, one of our plants in Coimbatore, which is an SEZ, almost 80% of that is exported out to US and other markets out of India. And not only that, but also leveraging R&D, IT, and digital innovation. because we know worldwide India is well accepted as a digital leader. So we are leveraging that. And retaining the talent in India is critical. So we have an aggressive strategy to retain the talent and restructure, of course, based on the regulatory guidelines, the ecosystem which is evolving from the regulatory standpoint. We are making changes. So, for example, we divested our stakes into BRICS India because we acquired WAPCO globally, and WAPCO India having a huge presence in India, we had to give out BRICS India. So that's been sort of a journey for us. Yeah.
Okay. So that's great to know. I mean, ZF has, I think it's defined resilience because not only you guys have started from scratch, but as I'm aware, you also, I think you have the second largest workforce in India outside of Germany at the moment, and especially in R&D as well. So you've also provided a great employment opportunity to the Indians, as well as the fact that closely working with the Indian government, you guys have also been awarded, I think, 2 PLIs at the moment, auto as well as textiles, if I'm aware. And we've had the chance to work with ZF very closely lately with this PLI application. So we hope to work together and achieve great things here.
That's true. Thank you.
No problem. Moving on to Tanushree. Tanushree, my question for you would be that battery swapping tech has played a major role in the three-wheeler market growth in India. Now, Battery Smart, being one of the leading startups in this space, can you talk about the growth of battery swapping ecosystem in India since the time of your inception? It is a nascent market. First the focus was on charging infrastructure or charging stations, and now clearly we're realizing the need for battery swapping as well, given the time constraints, range constraints, etc. So would you like to speak a little bit about the growth of that ecosystem while you've been here?
Sure. So Battery Smart is the largest and fastest growing swapping network in India right now. We're predominantly present in the northern part of the country. When we were conceived in 2019. We started operations sometime in early 2020, and that time we had about 100 odd drivers, three-wheeler e-rickshaws, and a handful of swap stations in the Delhi region. From there, standing today, I have grown to about 11,000 e-rickshaw, three-wheeler e-rickshaw drivers. I also have about 1,000 two-wheeler drivers, and I'm catering them through 400 swap stations across 12 cities in the northern part of the country. We're in, apart from Delhi NCR, we're in Rajasthan, we're in Uttar Pradesh. Present in 12 cities, and we are catering to a problem because we're offering swap within 2 minutes. And our end customer, we are a B2C company primarily, is the e-rickshaw driver, and for the e-rickshaw driver we're solving 3 problems. First and foremost is capex. He does not have to own and maintain and service the battery. That's a major problem. With lead acid electrification, which was very successful, and now it's sort of closing because we've seen a ban on lead acid registration in Delhi. The ownership was an issue. The battery was losing life within 8 months, and the driver had to worry. That worry we've taken away. We've also taken away the worry of charging. They do not have adequate load. It's time consuming. It takes about 5.5 hours to charge a battery. That we have solved. And lastly, range anxiety. So it's a 2-minute swap. You come to our multiple stations in Delhi. Only we have about 275 odd stations wherein you can get a quick swap. And so there is no downtime for the particular driver. Similar offering is given to our B2B customers. See, if you look at battery swapping ecosystem per se, there are multiple business lines. There is the leasing line where it's the VAS or the BAS model, mobility service, wherein the vehicle is leased with the battery, and then swapping is offered. Then there is a pure play, vanilla BAS, which is battery as rental or a subscription or a swapping model. And then there's also the retrofitment, wherein the old batteries are retrofitted and then they're swapped. And when we initially started, we had players who were doing the VAS model, the mass model. They did not achieve too much of success in terms of pure play battery swapping, and we've been able to do that. Today I have 40,000 odd batteries on my platform. I'm doing 20,000 swaps on a daily basis, and the reason I've been able to scale up is because I've not only created value for my customer, who's the driver, But I've also created value for my partner, my swap station operator. He's hosting the asset. I've created value for him as well, and that is the reason my footprint is if I look at the battery smart footprint, and I look at the rest of the swapping market, my total number of swapping stations is more than the rest of the market combined. And because I have created value both sides, towards the end customer as well as my partner. Coming to the battery aspect of it, mine is a customized battery. It's a standard battery. It can be picked up from any swap stations, dropped at any swap station. It's one standard battery for both three-wheelers and two-wheelers. It's a customized solution, and it is completely made in India. We do not import any component, anything from China. Everything is manufactured in India from our local OEM partners. That is also one of the reasons that we've been able to scale up with a very short lead time. Because if you look at the numbers and the way we've grown, I think our strategy towards localization and penetration in pockets where three-wheelers and two-wheeler hubs are present, that is something which has sort of played a big part.
Thanks, Tanushree. I mean, also a point to add here is that, Battery Smart has grown quietly and also very organically without marketing or anything, right? It's just been word of mouth. Your final customer, the rickshaw drivers, it's purely word of mouth, organic growth. For them, you have kind of solved a problem, because for these people, time is money, right? So you have saved them money in a way, in that sense. With that, I would like to hand over to Rajat for the next round of questions, please.
Thank you, Arishna. So I'll just go back to Mr. Orton again. So I understand right now your company is at a growing stage, and if your company had to enter a market like India, what we do is we take a lot of industry feedback from the industry players and take it to the government. So in case if you had to give if you had to share with us what kind of support you're seeking from the Indian government and the local industry players for your India entry, if you just share some words on that, it would be great.
Thank you. Very good question. I would start with support to find the right partner to grow in the Indian market with our technology, to make a joint venture with them, and perhaps also, like we are preparing it, to bring Indian technology also to Europe, and we bring our technology to India. Then it means a bilateral procedure. Like I said, we are a medium-sized company, very innovative, but not so big. And therefore, for us to join the Indian market could only be realized with a partner from India. And that's what we are looking for. And that could be the first step. The second step is the question of subsidy, how the government will support to bring Western Europe or German technology to the Indian market, to make the procedure with the transformation to clean the air, like Mr. Müller said it and discussed it, as soon as possible. And that could be one of the issues, that perhaps it takes too long, and to make it as quick as possible, because the rest of the world is not waiting, and therefore we have to speed up. And we are ready to make one step, and I'm convinced there are a lot of companies in Europe that are waiting for the Indian market, because it's minimum as big as the Chinese market, and therefore I can imagine India is the future. That fantastic country with so many young people and so many possibilities. We are ready to come to you.
That's great, Mr. Orton. And as I said earlier, we are going to definitely take this feedback to the Ministry of Heavy Industries, and I'm sure there are a lot of Indian players who are looking for technology partners like yours to partner and scale up the commercial vehicle industry in India. Thank you so much for that. And now I'll quickly circle back to Dr. Mukherjee again. We see OSM has inked a lot of strategic partnerships with both, cell manufacturers and technology companies. Can you just shed some light on the kind of partnership you have established over the years, and what are the possible gaps that you think we must overcome, and where these German MSMEs can contribute to the EV industry?
Yeah, Rajat, thanks. See, as I said earlier, our focus has been that we will have a strong, a solid grip on the supply chain, and battery, powertrain are two, obviously two main, critical parts. Now, the battery has its own sort of dynamics. The way the battery economy will evolve, etc. We will have to figure out several aspects of this whole battery economy, which I believe is anyway is going to be bigger than the EV itself. Now, coming to the what we have done and what we are looking for is we are looking at a clean sheet engineering capability. That is how the next generation of EV need to be designed. And again, I must compliment our friend from Ather. They have really done it, and they were probably the first to not do a retrofit kind of take a retrofit approach. They take out the engine, take out the gearbox, put the battery in, and put the motor, and there you have the EV. So that's not the way. The EV has to be designed from grounds up engineering. So that is something that we are we always envisioned, and we access the technology capability and knowledge from our partners in Korea, and something similar on the whole. The vehicle architecture has to be designed accordingly, and there are several factors that go into determining that, which are quite different from the IC engine. So as the industry evolves, we want to bring those capabilities to India. That is where I think the gap is there, and global companies like ZF, Continental, and Bosch, etc. I mean, they are the guys who bring these kind of capabilities to the fore, and they invest, they spend a lot of time, money, resources on those technologies. So we are trying to forge partnerships in these areas, and motor is going to be one where we do see there is a lot of gap in the industry. Customized motors built for the EVs in various form factors for India. That's something that we are looking at. The powertrain, the engineering of powertrain for various form factors like 1 ton is 1 ton vehicle, 1.5 ton range, etc. So that is something of interest, and also the whole electronics and IT part of it, because as we see the automobile industry is going to be part of this whole energy industry. It is going to be a large part of energy delivery ecosystem. So that is where I think a lot of opportunities are there for IT companies, software companies, etc., to work together with automobiles. So those are kind of capabilities we will build in-house along with our prospective partners.
Thank you, Dr. Mukherjee. It's very endearing to see Indian companies like OSM and Ather scale up. Not only make EVs for India but for the world. Thank you so much for your input. Now I'll go to Mr. Vaid here. We all know, ZF is leaving the global EV transition from an auto component manufacturer point of view, and even in India, ZF has uniquely positioned itself to offer its advanced technologies through innovation in an unrivaled footprint. So can you speak a few lines on the strategic partners you have established to enter the new product verticals over the years, especially in the EV segment in India?
See, first and foremost, as I explained in the previous one, we are uniquely positioned through our network of JVs and wholly owned subsidiaries, which don't have an overlap, but they are complementing each other. So we have that network already in place. And I would like to touch upon first our recent acquisition, which is WABCO, which is now called as Commercial Vehicle Solutions for India. WABCO has a huge presence in the commercial vehicle market. And the segments that they are present, they have an enviable market share. And that's what we are leveraging now to evaluate and introduce our eMobility solutions for commercial vehicles to the customers. So there are advanced discussions ongoing with the major players because, see, we offer the entire e-drive system, the transmissions, the reduction gears and everything for commercial vehicles, for passenger vehicles, and for off-highway vehicles. Plus, we are also sort of offering the test systems which allow these vehicles to be tested and validated and the systems to be integrated. So we have a full package which can be offered. And yeah, there are discussions ongoing with the commercial vehicle people as well as with the pass cars that what can be adopted by them for the new platforms. And so that will evolve, and we will keep on declaring it as it is signed off. I can only say at this point only that much.
Yeah, that's great, Mr. Ved. So as we all know, localization is one of the key targets for any OEM in India to achieve to be a successful player in the price-sensitive market like India. And availability of technologies from companies like ZF is very essential in the local supply chain itself. Thank you so much for your input. Now I'll come to Kunal. Ether, since its inception 2013, I understand it's working very closely with a German company, especially Mahle, in developing the powertrain. So can you just, I think it's a very good overview on the Indo-German relationship, how an Indian startup is working with a German company to make their product for the industry. So can you just share your experience, how it was working with Mahle over the years?
Yeah, sure, Rajat. So, so yeah, as rightly mentioned, powertrain is kind of the heart of an EV, right? And when we started basically developing our product grounds up, we had in mind that we wanted the best of the product offering that is in the market. And Germany has been the hallmark of tech and innovation. Everyone is aware of that. The first automobile came out of Germany. So we knew that Mahle can be our potential partner, so we reached out to them, and luckily enough, they proved out to be one of our most strategic partner at the moment, right? So they are not just a supplier; they are our strategic and technological partner, right? When we started back in 2018, when we started the manufacturing, we used to import few of the parts over there because the local manufacturing was yet not established. But in a phased-wise manner, now we have been able to localize more than 99% of it. So most of the manufacturing is now happening within India, and that is one major focus area that I wanted to highlight. That it is not just business partner relationship. It is more like we are also investing in Make in India philosophy, which is the major boost to the economy of India also. So yeah, so basically we have grown huge in the last 3-4 years, and so has also Mahle. Like you mentioned, Mahle has been a partner, and so they have also whatever investment has been made, the return on investment has been huge because they also understand what potential Indian market has to bring out, right? So they are also investing, and we are working very closely, right? What as a philosophy Ather does is we usually like to co-work and then co-develop a product instead of just get the product right from the market and just fit it on a vehicle. We like to very closely work right from the grounds up approach, right from the beginning of the product development, and that is how we usually partner with whoever business partners are there. So yeah, it's been an absolutely brilliant journey, and we hope to continue the same with many more German players coming in. When you basically first shared me about this whole discussion that was about to happen, that was the first time when I got to know about Mittelstand, what it means. I never knew what Mittelstand means, and when I looked out on the net, I found out there are 99% of the German companies are Mittelstand, which is like 3.5 million. That's a huge potential placed out there, and I would really like to see more offerings from the German market coming in so that we can acknowledge what good product that has to offer and then to build that has to come to India.
So thank you, Kunal, for your input. And no, just an add-on question to my previous question. And this question is pretty much open to all the Indian OEMs, actually. So since you work very closely with the technology, what are the gaps you feel which are there in the supply side, the major gaps which you think German companies can contribute at the moment, which not there in India? We have a heavy import dependence on those technologies right now. Kunal, this question was for you and for Mr. Dr. Dev as well. If you can speak a few lines on that. Yeah.
Go on, sir. Go on. You take it. I'll speak after this.
Yeah, thank you, Kunal. See, the industry is evolving. First thing we have to acknowledge is that it is evolving globally, and also this time India is right at the forefront. Leave aside China. China has a head start of a couple of decades, but India, as I see, is right at the forefront. The major driver has been the government policies and incentives on the demand side as well as supply side. Now it is the job of the industry to come up with the solutions that the industry needs. Okay, so these solutions can be either homegrown or you can have partnerships. You can have various stakeholders involved into it, like researcher, academia, and other technology developers. So in that context, I would like to say that if you see the entire supply chain, there are requirements, as I said, right at the design stage. People, I mean, the companies who have the knowledge and know how to design a complete, from a grounds up engineering that we call, or a clean sheet design that we call. And a lot of these designs will have to be customized for India. India being the such a diverse and large market, I think you can't have a one size fit all kind of solution. The drive cycles, the usage pattern, the user's profile, etc. Vary tremendously as you go along. In various cities and tier 2, tier 3 markets, etc. I think this is where a lot of data driven approach is required, and you have to, each company obviously will work out its sweet spot, where it wants to place, where it wants to play, what is the appropriate space for them. So I think that is where it starts, the whole product architecture based on the customer requirement and the solution. The whole design engineering approach is required, and typically in EV it revolves around the battery. The vehicle gets designed around the battery, a car for example. Okay, now I think this is where there is a knowledge which can transfer from companies from Germany. Typically works a lot, the industry works a lot with universities, for example, researchers and all, and they sponsor a lot of these researches and studies. So this is where I think some knowledge sharing can happen, and we can gain on that aspect. So that's my view.
Yeah, and to add to it, I just have one small point. Dr. Deb had basically brilliantly pointed out all the major gaps that we are looking at the moment, right? What I personally see is that the government is doing whatever the government can, the policies, the subsidies, whatever. But it is upon us, the engineers, to bring in new technologies and innovations that can really work out the cost reduction, because India is a very cost sensitive market, and everyone is aware of that, right? So major boost on the cost reduction side needs to be taken up, and that can only be driven when new technologies are brought up to the clear, right? What we are working on are basically a decade-old technologies. If I talk specifically about motor, right, we are still dealing with permanent magnet motors, which everyone is aware is the supply chain of a permanent magnet is from a space which is not that much geopolitically stable, right? So we want to foray into a space where new technology can come in into that space, and whatever reliance is there on such part of supply chain, that can be overcome and mitigated. So yeah.
Thank you, Kunal, for your input. So since we are running short of time, my quick question to Tanushree again. So, Battery Smart is, operating in an ecosystem which is very unique to India or maybe Asian countries in general. So, and what I understand about Battery Smart is Battery Smart runs on a very asset-light model, and you have partnered with various manufacturers to manufacture your batteries and other components. So, in case a player wants to enter a market like India, can you share some brief about the partnerships you have established for scaling up your operations in such a short time?
Sure. So, as a swapping player, I have to be OEM agnostic, both in the three-wheeler and two-wheeler space. I have right now, we have spent a lot of time creating that sweet spot sort of a product, which is compatible both with three-wheelers and two-wheelers and across three-wheelers and two-wheeler OEM. It's one standard battery offering which we have. It's a customized design. and which we have tested and integrated with multiple three-wheeler and two-wheeler OEMs, and then work with our battery OEM partners to manufacture. So typically, and these are all local manufacturers. And what my feedback is that for a new player to enter the space, they have to understand the vehicle ecosystem, because the battery depends on what the vehicles want. Because all this while I've seen, if you look at the two-wheeler space, a lot of electrification happened in the unregistered space, which was the below 25 kilometer per hour. Now, everyone is moving, typically because of quick commerce and the nature and the disruption in the e-commerce industry. Everyone is moving to quick commerce. So now that has sort of moved the industry to a greater than 25 kilometer registered vehicle, which is typically at least a 48 volt or a 60 volt. So the vehicle OEMs here are the leaders, and we typically follow. As a swapping player, I have to integrate all kind of OEMs, because I'm typically not catering to one specific OEM. I have 7-8 two-wheeler, as well as about 10-12 three-wheeler OEMs whom I'm working with. So my suggestion is to, for anyone entering this market, is to partner with the vehicle OEM and integrate with them. Because anyways, the market is moving towards registered vehicles. You need registration, you need homologation with a particular vehicle OEM to sell in India, to get any subsidy support. So my suggestion would be to tag along with for a new entity, to tag along with a vehicle OEM, and then sort of open up to other avenues.
Thank you, Tanushree, and I think the industry will deeply appreciate your feedback. And I think with this, I think we can wrap up the panel discussion. And I would like to thank all the panelists for taking out time from the schedule to join us for the event. And just to add on to that, I just got a call from the director at Ministry of Heavy Industries, and he wants to convey his regards, and he wants to apologize that he could not join, but he will definitely be available for any kind of support the government can offer. So a thanks on behalf of him as well. Now I'll request Jamli to take over and conclude the session.
Thank you, Rajat, and the esteemed panelists who joined us. I think it was truly encouraging to see both worlds, Germany and India, meeting ends and for the betterment of the community. I'll restrict myself to just 2 questions from the audience in the interest of time, so we can conclude maybe in the next 2-3 minutes. The first question, I keep it open to all of you. Whoever deems fit to answer, I'll request them to take it forward. What are the current battery overhaul and reusable technologies available to address the used batteries at the end of its life cycle? Idea, surely. Would you like to take it up, Mr. Vaidya, from your side?
Shamli, I think you broke up in between, so we were not able to hear you properly.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I'll repeat myself. I mentioned about, since in the interest of time, I'll restrict myself to just 2 questions from the audience. I'll leave it open to all of you to answer the question, whoever feels it's appropriate. So the first question is, what are the current battery overhaul and reusable technologies available to address the used batteries at the end of its life cycle? I hope I was clear and you could hear me now. Mr. Mueller, would you want to address this, or any other panelists?
Yes, I would love to address this in general. As we already said many times, the battery is highly important in the whole context. And for us from the BEM, we see the life cycle of a battery has a second, third, and even fourth life. Because after a use of maybe 5 to 8 years in the vehicle, we can use it as a engineer storage system, the used battery, and it could be an active one or an inactive one. So the battery is really worth a lot. And what's highly important for us, if we talk about investment, to separate the battery somehow and say every investment in the battery makes sense because of the energy market. We have to look at the energy market and combine it together with the transport section. That's very important because if we want to make e-mobility cheaper, we have to use the battery for solar energy, for wind energy, for renewables, and we have to prepare the vehicles that they're ready for vehicle to grid. That's highly important. I think in here we should think about the Indian market to start with pretty much every vehicle that it somehow can use the battery for as a battery storage, and that we connect e-mobility right away with the energy market, with the solar market, on a local part with local solar panels, or on a bigger sense with bigger vehicles as an energy storage. And very, very important, that makes e-mobility cheaper to use the battery, first of all, as a storage, and then second, in a second, third, and fourth life as a battery storage system. Highly important, and we have to always put this into the discussion.
Yes, I think to keep it sustainable, that's right. The second question would be, are hybrids going to be the catalyst to scale up the EV revolution and add the balance needed for a seamless transition from ICE? I don't know, Mr. Mukherjee, would you want to address this question?
Oh, yes, thank you. My thoughts are, I think India will, jump the hybrid stage. We are already into EV in a big way. The investments are happening. The government policies are there, both on supply side as well as demand side. And I think the whole ecosystem is really growing fast. And of course, there are various estimates of 30, which vary from 30% up to 100% conversion, etc. So I believe that hybrid is a complex technology, which is sort of it's expensive, and also it's not that scalable in the context of India. Once you don't have the supply chain or the supply the partners and knowledge, etc. So I think the industry, it is also better we focus on electrification and we go into EVs rather than of course in EV there can be various battery technologies. For example, lithium ion today is the most mature. Sodium is being talked about, metal air is being talked about, etc. But essentially those are electric technologies. Even hydrogen is actually powering the motor. So I think from the application point of view, from also the sustainability and the scaling point of view, India needs to focus on electric, and maybe on the higher bigger trucks, etc. In future hydrogen will come, maybe 5 to 7 years away, once the technology matures and the whole infrastructure is set in place. So my thoughts are that electrification, pure electrification is the way to go.
I would support you 100%,
Dr.
Deb. Thank you for that words, because I don't see a hybrid market in India either.
No. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for that insights, Dr. Mukherjee and Mr. Muller. Thank you, dear panelists. Once again, I take this opportunity to thank the Embassy of India, MIIM, Invest India, and our esteemed panelists for all their due support and patience today. Thank you, dear attendees, for all your patient listening. We will continue to do these technical sessions in the coming months as well, and we shall keep you updated. Until then, stay safe and stay healthy. Namaste.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.